3, 4.
Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, Liana Kangas, and this week's guest is not only a comics enthusiast, a foodie, a cat dad, and probably Stiltman's #1 stan. It's the creator of Sketch and Off Panel podcast, David Harper. Thanks for coming on, David.
Thanks for having me, Liana.
I just think that this is the funniest thing ever. Like, obviously, you know, I listen to this podcast all the time. So when you had asked me, hey, you want to do me a favor? You weren't even like, hey, if you don't have time, whatever, it's cool. But I was like, oh, no, absolutely. This is 100% happening. I can't wait. I'm going to take over your podcast, the entire empire, and then fire you. This is my podcast now. So.
You are the only person ever besides me to host this podcast, which is absolutely, like, it's funny. Like, this is 300 episodes in the making. I love it.
It's incredible. You do such a great job at cultivating community, and this podcast rules. And 300 episodes is a lot, and I cannot wait to ask you all the really cool interview questions that people sent us in. Right before we were recording, I was just telling David that I love the way he does interviews, and I am really honored to do the hosting of this episode. However, I'm like, will I do good enough? Is this going to be good? Will we just be interviewing each other back and forth?
Maybe. I told you before, it is entirely within the realm of possibilities that I will just start interviewing you, because that is what happens every time I've been interviewed. Except for the one time I went on a podcast to talk about Stiltman. I was actually a pretty good guest that time.
Which you have to do again, by the way, on my podcast.
I think that's been the one common theme on every episode every podcast I've been on. Besides the fact that I'm the person that's answering the questions, it is always Stiltman comes up. I think it's funny that that's like a curiosity. It's like, I don't know. Are there other Stiltman fans? There has to be, right?
There has to be, but branding wise, you are the only one that I know of. Honestly, I'm pretty sure I might have figured out who Stiltman was because of you. So actually, yeah, you gave me the entire explanation after when I was a guest on your podcast.
You did a great Stiltman on the package you sent me. I mean, it's amazing. Okay, so now I'm I'm throwing an interview question for you already. All right, you said it's a branding thing. What is my brand? Is it just cats, Stiltman, Kaiju Max? I think that's the core three.
Kaiju Max, I forgot about that one. I was gonna say like Fantasy League, NBA player lineup.
Yeah.
Foodie.
Yeah.
Cats, and definitely Stiltman, or like the obscure old Marvel stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's an eternal lasting thing. I mean, I think everybody's got their thing. I do think it's really funny to think of Stiltman as a brand. That is like the worst brand.
At least it's memorable.
That's true. I like it. You know, everyone else is going for these like really like audacious, amazing corners. It's like, I'm going to be the biggest fan of like, I don't know, Beyonce. And I'm like, I'm going to be the biggest fan of a dude who attaches stilts to his legs and robs people. I'm like, okay, That's my corner. I can own that corner.
I think this is a good segue with obscure comics and stuff like that, and like how much you actually read. We actually had a question from Twitter from Jaslyn asking how many comics you read a week, and then what makes you excited about the future of comics. That second parter, that's like a big, mind-blowing one.
So I have like... Lately, I've been very bad because you tweeted out about how, like, you know, what Star Wars books do people enjoy? And I've been reading, like, all of the Thrawn books lately, so I've been reading a lot of books. But I would say that on average, like, a minimum amount of comics I buy a week is, like, single issue comics is probably 5. And then probably the maximum is somewhere around, like, 15. And so, like, 5 to 15, plus I buy a bunch of trades. Like, my trade, I have a bookcase So you can see my background right now. That's one bookcase. I have another bookcase over here, another one. So I have a total of 4 bookcases plus 37 long boxes over here to the right.
Oh yeah, I remember that you and I have this thing where we have an unrealistic amount of long boxes, and you even made a throne of your
Yes.
short boxes, right, or your long boxes,
Yeah.
and sat in it Game of Thrones style.
It was amazing. Yeah, but I mean, so I have all of those, but then there's another bookcase that's like my, I don't know, this is a baseball reference, so I know I'm going to make way too many sports references, but it's like my on deck circle for reading. I have a bookcase that has 8 cubes in it that is basically just filled with graphic novels and trade paperbacks for me to read. Like I got Stray Bullets Uber Ales edition, or I just totally mispronounced that name, the David Lapham book, 2 years ago for Christmas, and it's this massive like phone book brick that I still need to read. So anyways, long story short, I have this insane list of books that I still need to read, but I would say somewhere between 5 and 15 single issue comics a week, and probably, depending on the week, like 2 to 4 trades or graphic novels, and then on top of that, I'm often reading digital stuff just so I can prep for the podcast. So I would say lengthwise, probably 30 or 40 comics.
Hey, I was about to say at least 7 trades, if not more, right? A week.
I don't even know if that's a lot. Is that a lot?
I think it's a trade a day. And
Yeah.
when I tweeted about doing a trade a day, everyone was like, "How do you do that?" And I was like,
I think that's kind of what everybody says about everything you do, though, because you do a lot.
fair point, but you do too, which is good.
Yeah. But what has me excited about the future of comics? I mean, what has me excited about the future of comics is like how we met. And I know that's a very strange thing to say, but so I met Liana because I was at Emerald City Comic Con and I tweeted, I was like, hey, are there any cool artists I should check out on, the floor? Like people, because, there's like a sea of people to possibly meet, or like
Hundreds.
Yeah. hundreds. And it's like, not, it's hard to get to every single person, but I wanted to make sure that if there's anybody that people thought I might really like, people who might be really good Stiltman commissioneers and things like that, that I was going to make sure to do that. And I remember the list of people included you and included Trung Le Nguyen, who's another person I love. And I don't remember who else, but it was funny. It was Michael Perlman, who is, the person I've known through the internet for a long time, routed me over to you because you worked on that, the Vegas anthology, charity anthology. And I checked out your stuff and it was amazing. And I bought stuff from you right then. And ever since then, we've been, very friendly. But I mean, that's the thing though, is like the depth of comics is so much, like, so expansive today. It's like unbelievable. There's like so many, you can go to a convention and every style and every type of story and every way you can, sell or make comics is out there. And they're coming from people from all different places and all different backgrounds. And it's just amazing. I mean, I think the fact that, I could buy a totally amazing, is it Victor Santos? No, the guy who did Polar. Yeah, I think it's Victor Santos. Like, I could buy a comic from him off of Panel Syndicate, or I could, get the latest issue of True Cult sent to me, or I could get, whatever. But I mean, comics are coming from anywhere, from people of all varieties, and they're covering all kinds of things. And I think that's great. I mean, like last year, my favorite comics were an adaptation of Slaughterhouse-5 and a comic that was about a cartoonist following a high school basketball team while he learns about himself as a graphic novelist and the types of stories he wants to do and how he doesn't want to be a teacher anymore. I mean, I think those are things that I never would have expected. And as a person who has a themed sketchbook that is superheroes doing ordinary things, I love like the very mundane stuff that is actually like filled with character. And I don't know. I mean, I think that's great. I mean, let's flip it back on you. What makes you excited about comics? I'm doing it.
Oh, this is my podcast.
Okay.
I really agree, and especially with what you were saying, how your options are kind of limitless, and like our ability to expand our community with the internet and everything is so important right now, especially right now. And because of that, like even prior to, you get to develop these cool friendships or like peerships with people during right now and learn a lot from everyone. So I think that's awesome, especially with being landlocked, which brings me to my next question.
Wait, can I add one other thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think it's really cool how well comics mesh with like social media. So like I can read like Lucy Nicely can have comics about her cat on Instagram, or like Carl Kerschel can do a new like episode of The Abominable Charles Christopher, one of my all-time favorite comics, and it fits perfectly with Instagram. And like I think that's really cool. I mean, like, you know, Hannah Blumenreich did a Spider-Man Twitter comic that got her work with Marvel, and then now is doing like amazing graphic novels for First Second. And I think the fact, I don't know, I just think there's so much opportunity for comics because it fits so much with how we do things already. Like your phone is a great platform for reading comics. It just isn't the way we normally do it in like single issue floppy form.
The future of comics in terms of delivery format is probably one of my all-time favorite things, but it also stresses me out knowing that there's like, what comic is right for which platform, you know? And that's something that even when Scott and I were figuring out True Call, we were like, we don't know. Digital sounds great, but also we love print. And like,
why not both?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Why not both?
This is how I feel about when I go to like breakfast and I want everything on the menu and I can't just do that. Like, why can't I want it all.
Are we the same person? I literally have to, I'm like, I need one waffle from the side menu, one thing of eggs, you know, like you have to like layer, there's no perfect platter. That's impossible.
Have you ever been to a breakfast buffet?
That sounds real dicey to me. Maybe just right now, but like I would maybe consider it in the future, you know.
Oh, yeah, very dicey.
But I think those are fairly popular in the South here, so.
There was one here that actually got shut down because they didn't have sneeze guards on any of the stuff, and now thinking back on that, I'm like, no, why? Why did I eat there? I loved it though.
All of the things that you used to do in the before times, and now you're like, I would absolutely never.
Amber and I are watching the Pride and Prejudice miniseries from 1995 that the BBC did, and with Colin Firth in it, who is utterly spectacular in it. And there's like times where I'm just looking at him like, none of these people are wearing masks. What the hell? I'm like, that literally happened 26 years ago. I'm like, anyways.
The volume of people next to each other, not, you know, completely covered.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one's a really important question to me just because I cannot wait for your answer. And it is something that has sort of to do with conventions and things like that. But John O'Deener had asked, does living in Alaska make you feel disconnected from the comics community, or does the internet make you feel closer than ever to it?
I think it makes me feel, I mean, it's not really the internet necessarily. It's partially the internet. But one thing I really love about being from Alaska is like, I'm kind of the guy from Alaska in comics. Maybe that's part of my brand too.
We're the only one. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's like almost every time I do a podcast, I'll do a little preamble where I'll talk to the person for like 10 or 15 minutes before we start recording, just to kind of, you know, get to know them and lay down the ground rules and let them know what's up and everything like that. And almost invariably, we'll talk about Alaska because people are always like, holy shit, you live in Alaska? And I'm like, yep, I live in Alaska.
Like you're on the South Pole, like in equivalence, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, like for the average person, Alaska is a very theoretical thing, or it's something that they see in reality shows because it is still a very theoretical thing. I mean, all the reality shows are absurd. It's just like, oh, we're living in the wild. And I'm like, you live next to a Costco. I know that. Calm down.
I'm pretty sure the first time that we had talked about it, I was like, is 30 Days of Night real minus the vampire stuff? What's happening? Yeah.
That came up on a very recent podcast with Rodney Barnes. We talked about 30 Days of Night. But yeah, I mean, but I love it because it's like, I mean, it's very fitting that I'm saying this, but Alaska is an excellent icebreaker with people. And so I do feel like it has like this instant camaraderie because people are very interested in Alaska as a place. I do think that it is a little bit of it's kind of problematic because like for most people, I don't ever meet them because I'm up here and I don't go to conventions that much. That is my dark secret, Liana. I'm not a huge convention guy. Not a huge convention
I'm surprised you choose Emerald City in New York for your one convention.
Why?
You're like, I choose the hardest ones to do.
Why are they hard? Emerald City is easy to me.
Oh, maybe it's just me thinking about the volume of like people and like how expansive the floors are and everything. But like to get from one panel to the artist alley, it takes you 20 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that's
So
true.
like my home show here, you can just walk somewhere in 1 minute.
I've just done it so many times that like here's a weird thing. You know what? One of the weird things that I've been kind of nostalgic for during this is like I would normally stay at this place called oh God, I completely forgot the name of it. Anyways, it's this hotel that's right by. It's not the Sheraton. I don't say the Sheraton because the Sheraton is absolutely insane at Emerald City Comic Con. But so the I'll stay at this one hotel, and what I'll do is I'll go to Starbucks and I'll get a coffee and I'll get one of their little breakfast sandwiches. It's the only time I ever have those breakfast sandwiches, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually really love their breakfast sandwiches. So it's like this. Like,
I do too.
they're good, yeah. Anyways, and so I'll go there and I'll grab that, and then I'll go over and I'll go through like going through the convention center. I know the exact routes that are the fastest to get anywhere in the entire place. The first time I went there, it was like trying to negotiate an MC Escher painting. It was just an absolute nightmare because the staircases are everywhere.
Agree. Yeah. I got lost and I ran into and met Erica Henderson and her partner. And like, I'm pretty sure that was like the only way that I found Artist Alley was because of them. I was like, I see boxes and art stuff. I'm definitely following them. And then I realized like who it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still
it's
can't
nuts.
tell you how. Yeah.
But I mean, I've been there so many times. I just like I said, I grabbed my sandwich, I grabbed my coffee. The hotel was the motif. Also, the motif in consecutive years upgraded me to a suite for no charge, which was awesome. So apparently, I'm getting like some sort of like long-term visitor vibes. They're like, "Oh, we remember this guy. Let's put him in a suite." I'm like, "Yes." Anyways, and like it's like I don't know. It's like home for me. New York is overwhelming. New York's a lot.
Yeah. A lot of buildings and everything smashed together.
Well, I mean, even the convention floor. Like, I remember going to see you at the 2000 AD booth, and you're just trying to make it through the sea of people. Like, okay, so I'm going to tell you a quick story from New York. I was going to interview Rosemary Valero O'Connell. Do you know who Rosemary is?
Oh, yeah. Love her.
Yeah, her stuff's amazing. And I was so flustered after trying to get through like a million people. I had everything set up back at the place where I was doing the interview over by the press room. And I go up to her, and after trying to get through a sea of people, I had like lost the ability to use words properly. And I introduced myself by saying, "Hi, I'm Rosemary."
That sounds like something I would do for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, so it is a little overwhelming. But yeah, I'm not a giant convention fan, so losing out on that because of Alaska's distance from everything isn't that big of a deal. But I don't know. I would say it's a net plus for me. I just like I was talking to the guy who owns my local comic shop, and he said that a couple years ago he was like, I was on a call with somebody that was like in New York that was for like a big retailer thing, and I said I was from Alaska, and they asked me if I knew David Harper. And I was like,
what?
That's awesome. I'm the Alaska guy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like getting recognized in public as anyone in comics, let alone, being like, do you know you? Have you met you, sir? I think Alex Packnadell, I guess, recognized me at Challengers once before C2E2.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I went again to buy more comics because it's me,
Mm-hmm.
You've met me. And Patrick was like, the second after you left, Alex was like, is that Liana Kangas? And I was like, what? A famous person recognizing me is out of the realm of possibilities in my mind. So it must have been real nice to be like, I am so elusive yet so famous that somebody knows who I am, but does not know what I look like.
I think I'm like famous in the sense that like if there was one person that lived in Greenland, that person would be famous. Like, oh, it's that one guy, the only person that exists there.
Alaska has population too, you and Amber, and that's it.
Exactly. That's it for a lot of people. But yeah, no, I think that would be it. I mean, the funny thing is I actually think I'm a very bad Alaskan, but Alaska has worked out quite nicely for me, so I'm not going to besmirch its name.
Good. I'm sure you have a lot of listeners in Alaska, and they're like, you better keep it together.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, like, I'll be nice for them, though. I'll be nice for them.
So with Alaska out of the way, there is a pretty big question. I guess that I sort of piggybacked off of this question was from Marie, and she wanted to know what in the you've had this is the 300.5 episode, and out of the 300 episodes that you've done and all these people that you have interviewed and everything, what do you feel like has changed the most in the industry throughout this time, for better or worse? And how do you see the industry moving forward?
I thought you were going to ask me who my favorite guest was. I get that.
Oh, no, that's so mean.
I know. I have a very democratic answer.
I know it's me, so you don't have to answer it. It's fine.
I always say my friend Brandon, because then no one's going to be like upset because I said a friend of mine. But what has changed the most in terms of comics? When you first started saying that, I was going to be like, I am not bad at podcasting anymore, which I think is a good thing. But no, I mean, I think the thing that's changed the most is, I don't know if this is really a fair way to say it, because like, I don't know if like in 2009 when I first started writing about comics, it was right when Image was first starting to pick up, and it was like creators were starting to have a little bit more power, like they were having a little bit more control of what they could do. But that was mostly in the sense of like creator-owned comics and like the deals you could have. And like not every person necessarily wants to make an Image comic or wants to do a deal with Boom or whomever or anything like that. So I think one of the things that's really been cool to see since I first started in 2015 is like people really actually having some semblance of power. Like you can do a webtoon that gets graduated to like an original that you end up like publishing as a book or something like that. Or you could be like James Tynion the Fourth and you could like just be like, I'm going to make an anthology of horror comics as Razor Blades, and like that's what I'm going to do. Or you could do Panel Syndicate, and all of those people are like, you know, really notable names. So that's not necessarily an easy thing to replicate. But I do think that with Kickstarter and with all the different platforms you can do stuff on, it has made it a lot more possible for you to not only make the comic you want to make, but also to find an audience with it and also to make money off of it. And those three things are typically pretty separate, like in the past. And like, you know, I remember when I first was starting, it was just like, you know, what comics do you want to make? Do you want to make Marvel comics or DC comics? And now it's like your option is I can make whatever comics I want to make. And I think that makes for better comics. I think that's really cool. I think that Kickstarter was kind of in its infancy. I mean, it really started in like 2008, 2009, but it's really gotten to a point where anybody can use it and find a way to do it and keep making headway off of it. And I think that's great. I mean, I think it's really cool, all the different ways you can make comics today. And I think that gives a lot of power to the creators. And I think anything that gives creators more power is great.
Especially knowing you're going to get the story that they want to tell. It's not changed for any monetary reason or anything like that.
Right. I mean, like, do you know Check Please by Ngozi Ukazu?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yes.
That comic is amazing. And like never in a million years would I have thought I would have read a comic that was about a, you know, closeted gay college hockey player who has a baking vlog about his like 4 years over school becoming like a, you know, NCAA champion and a married man and also somebody who can deliver a check that like just rattles somebody's teeth and everything like that. I mean, like that was a story, and also a very successful vlogger. That is something that I never expected to possibly be able to read, but that book was so successful that, you know, it had successful Kickstarters. It got a book deal with First Second. It started as a webcomic, and that was before I started podcasting. Like the beginning of that was, but at the same time, I feel like that was kind of this moment where it made people realize that there's more than one way to make. I used to say more than one way to skin a cat, but now I have cats. I don't want to say that anymore because it feels really weird.
That term can just be kicked out the window right now.
Who came up with that?
Yeah. I don't know. There's some weird ones that still exist.
It's so weird. I'm like, no, I don't want to skin a cat. Why would you skin a cat? But anyways, there's more than one way to make a comic and make money off of it. And I think that's great. I think it's really cool. And it's like you can make your own destiny, and I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Speaking of making your own destiny, you touched a little bit about the self-improvement of like your own experience on the podcast. Do you want to expand on that at all?
I was really bad.
That's the answer. I was just really bad at it.
My first podcast I didn't have a microphone. I was speaking directly into my laptop. I I don't even remember how I decided I was going to use the same call recorders software that I'm still using, but that worked out really well. That actually was one of my best decisions. I barely edited it. I mean, I did edit it because I'm always pretty fastidious about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've gotten better over the years because I got better equipment. I got better at realizing what I needed to do. I remember one time I talked to a couple creators who listened to the podcast at Emerald City. I'm not going to name them because, I don't want to put them on the spot, but they told me they're like, your audio quality is very uneven. Like, yeah.
That's good though, that someone would point that out because they're like intending to listen.
Yeah. And they said they really love it, but it's just like when I'm on the subway, it's really hard to be able to hear this. And like, like the levels are different. And so that led me to find this like auto leveler that I use called Auphonic, which is great. I used to actually go through and manually re-level everything myself, and that was a miserable thing. So yeah, I mean, I kept learning about what I was doing poorly at, and I tried to get better at it. And yeah, I've also gotten better at not saying like every other word, which is good.
I was just talking with a friend of mine who says and a lot when they're speaking. And I realized I definitely used to say like a lot. But I think streaming and stuff like that, you have a moment where you can just pause and that's fine, especially since you can edit it out, which is nice, right? So, but I have a follow-up only because another wonderful human who listens to your podcast, Chris Hacker, asked, I'd be curious to know your thoughts on what your first big break was in the podcasting world and how you were able to get yourself out there to a wider audience.
Well, I can tell you that my very first podcast for a long time was my most listened to podcast. I would describe Off Panel as an accidental overnight success, and it was because my first guest was Sean Murphy, and Sean came on, and Sean has a tendency of being very open and honest. And he said it was meant to be an episode about the business of comics. And he was very honest about some of the stuff that he had done through Image and DC. And The Beat made an entire article just transcribing quotes from Sean and linked to the podcast. And that first podcast was downloaded something like 10,000 times in like the first 5 days. And
that's wild.
Yeah. And after that, I had a lot of listeners and I had a lot of people reading Sketched just because of that one podcast. I felt bad because Sean got, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the details or anything like that, but I imagine Sean heard from people about that. And the fact was that, the article that went up was largely putting up quotes from him that didn't have the context of the lead into it. And that's always a tough look for people. So at the same, and so it was a little tough for him. But that was my first really big break, was the fact that right off the top, my first podcast blew up tremendously. I mean, it was the only time that ever happened. But for one period, Off Panel, according to iTunes charts, was the worldwide 80th ranked podcast in the entire world for all podcasts.
Are we only just now finding out about this? Because I don't remember this statistic.
No,
this is wild.
It was a very brief period, and it's because Apple's stuff is based off of like a lot of different things involving like subscriptions and reviews and ratings and everything like that. And because I had all of it happen on one day because of that Beat article, it just went through the roof. And yeah, that was my one day of gaining a lot of listeners. I would say the second and third biggest day or spikes were I had podcasts with the Image founders that ran as part of an article I wrote for The Ringer. So it was Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Jim Valentino, and Eric Larson. And that was really big. And then when Jonathan Hickman came on right after House of X and Powers of 10 finished, I got a ton of new listeners from that too, because he doesn't do a lot of interviews that he takes very seriously, and he seemed to take my one fairly seriously. And so there was a lot to chew on there. So yeah, those groupings are still to this day like the most listened to podcasts I have.
That's awesome. One of your followers, Rasmus Likey, he wants to know who's the one guest you'd would like to have on the podcast, but haven't been able to yet.
Jim Lee.
Jim Lee. Jim, let's go.
Come on, Jim.
Let's do this.
Do you want to know? This is like a very minor pandemic tragedy, but I had actually successfully gotten DC publicity to agree to do an interview with me and Jim at Emerald City last year.
No.
Thanks, coronavirus. Yeah.
You'll get revenge on that at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah. I've tried to get him many, many times. Basically, every time there's an anniversary episode, like my first attempt is several months out, I'll start trying to book Jim Lee.
I'm looking forward to it because I can't imagine that he would not want to come on.
So one of the things that what I do to try to bring, like, you know, because sometimes you need to have kind of an angle to get people to come on episodes. And for Jim, you know, like you don't want to just be the same interview everyone's ever always listened to, like, you know, same promotional interview or this or that. And with Jim, my thing I've always tried to pitch him on is I only want to talk about art. I'm not going to ask you about DC stuff. Like
art collecting.
No, just art, period. Because like he was my favorite artist when I was a kid. He was basically the reason why I love comics. And I'm like, I just want to talk to you about art. And that's it. And
you used to want to draw comics, didn't you?
Yeah. I have a sketchbook to the right of me. It's horrible.
You have to show me afterwards.
No. People have so many muscles in my drawings. I don't even know why. There's just muscles everywhere.
Well, because you're learning when you're a kid, you're like learning from Big Two, that like house style, right?
Right.
So of course they're going to have way more muscles than people. Ones that don't exist, you know?
I was a 90s kid too, and everyone was shredded back then.
Yeah. I mean, unreal.
It was next level for me, though. I was like, it was just like they have like, I don't know, orbs of muscles just everywhere on their legs in particular. They did not skip leg day in my drawings.
Now that we're talking about 90s comics, we got a question from John Allison.
Oh, God.
And this is the most intense question out of this entire list. I was like laughing when I was reading it. Would you rather wear a Kang-style faceplate for a year all of the time, or have to wear a replica of Squirrel Girl's tail for a year? You have to wear these things everywhere, even in bed, in the shower, etc. If you have to go to a funeral, you have to wear them. You are not allowed to explain them in any way other than, it's my thing, even to your wife. Wild card, get out. You have to carry a foot-high statue of an anime character unboxed everywhere you go. The bank, the movies, the shower. It can be on the nightstand, in your home. It's my thing still rule applies, you know.
That is the greatest question. I love it. Like, John is one of my favorite people in comics.
Scary.
I love the fact that he is like literally an Eisner winner and he's sending these questions. I
couldn't even get through the entire question without messing it up.
John is the only person I specifically solicited a question from, and he did not disappoint. So I thought a lot about this. Also, I gotta tell you this. He sent me a picture of an example of what the anime statue would look like, and let's just say not that. That would not be one of my choices.
I assumed it was not pleasant.
Well, my arms would get really tired, I imagine. Like that, like the other ones, like a faceplate, you know, it would just be something I would wear, or the tail would just be something I would wear. I would do the tail, 100%.
I love that you're thinking of the practicality that this bears.
It's my thing. It's my life. I got to think about the practicalities. I would definitely.
As a 90s kid, the wearing the tail thing definitely reminds me of the old school goth, like mall days. You know what I mean?
Did they wear? I was not cool enough to.
Kids would attach, like raccoon tails and stuff to their pants.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember that. Squirrel Girl's tail is huge, though.
It's comically massive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so the big problem I had was, okay, there's multiple things. I talked to Amber about this. So sleeping wouldn't be a huge problem because I'm more of a side sleeper anyways. So tail would not be a huge issue. Cats would be a problem. Cats would be all over it. Thankfully, it is not actually a tail that is biologically connected to me, so it wouldn't hurt me if they went after it. I think the big issue would be sitting down literally anywhere. And Amber and I discussed the idea that we could have custom chairs made where I could put my tail through the back end of it. And so that would resolve a lot of the issues. So I would definitely go tail. Tail's the answer.
The architect is like, we'll design something. It'll be fine. Like, you've thoroughly thought this out.
Yes.
Discussed, ready to do it. I love that there's no winning scenario in this. Like, John didn't even give you you'll win $1 million. It is a lose-lose scenario, no matter what.
Unless you really like tails or faceplates.
Yeah,
the faceplate is lower impact, but there's a lot of practicalities that were difficult there, like eating. I'm like, do I have to like jam it through? Like, do I have to eat food through that, or what do I do? Anyways, so yeah, tail is definitely the answer.
I wish I could just rebrand my entire comics thing and just like, much like MF Doom, wear a Doom mask, but only have, that's why I guess, the half face version where he can actually,
yes,
talk and stuff.
That's a solid choice.
Probably in public. I just always wondered if he, went in public to restaurants and stuff while still wearing the mask.
Well, I sent you the picture I came across in Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary in Brisbane, Australia, of Daft Punk holding a koala. Well, they were with a person who was holding a koala while wearing their masks. So we know at least Daft Punk did that. I don't know if MF Doom did, though.
That might be why they retired. They were like, we need some time off without wearing these.
The koala time was traumatic. Yeah, no. I would definitely... I don't know. The nice thing is, did you watch The Good Place?
Yeah.
So in The Good Place, when there was like the EDM artist who let Jason wear his mask, and he just like went off and did something else, and like he just did his set for him. I mean, in theory, literally anyone could be under those masks. It could.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Now that we're in the weird questions, I guess now's the time to bring up sports.
Oh no.
Daniel Grote, awesome human, of the many guests you've had on Off Panel, who knows the most about NBA, but also who knows the most about NBA Jam?
Okay, so I don't know if the answer for one is the answer for the other. I'm going to say Rico Renzi probably knows the most about NBA Jam. And I don't know, there's no reason why I necessarily believe that beyond the fact that Rico is the right age to have been like an NBA Jam fan. And he also loves the NBA. And it seems like his style. So I'm going to say Rico probably knows the most about that. I did an entire podcast at Emerald City Comic Con with Ramon Villalobos and Gavin Guidry in which we talked about basketball. So I was
going to say, are those two or Robert or any of them going to try and fight for this title of knowing the most about NBA Jam?
Maybe. I would probably say those two or Sanford Green, who knows a ton and is a huge LeBron fan, or Rico would probably be the ones. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ramon and Gavin, though. They're probably the one, because I'm like I said, they actually took the time during a Comic-Con to record a basketball podcast, so they're my picks.
Again, falls under your branding that I know nothing about, but I somehow know everybody in that circle that's obsessed with comics, NBA people. I'm like, how do I know all of them?
And you would have known the greatness of NBA Jam if you had come to my 2019 Emerald City Comic Con meetup, because we played NBA Jam there. That was very fun. It was a good idea to have that in an arcade. I like that.
That's such a good idea. Along with the theme, Carl Mazel, you're building the perfect pitcher. This pitcher will have 4-pitch repertoire, and you can program them to throw any pitcher's version of a given pitch. What pitches are you choosing?
I wrote answers down for this one in case you asked it, just because I didn't want to take up too much time on it, because I know you're not a big baseball person, but my answers are Tim Wakefield's knuckleball, as somebody suggested. I think it was Jack Mulqueen who said that. Mariano Rivera's cutter, Randy Johnson's slider, Pedro Martinez's changeup. That person would be unhittable. And I don't know, not human, or like a hybrid human. They'd be like a chimera from the X-Men comics. That's who I would pick. I tied it back into comics.
I love that you had a list ready to go. Like, we're just going to blow through this. Brett A. Schmidt asked an incredibly interesting question, which I love this one. You've been given the chance to pitch a comic-based trading card set for the spring of 2022, and Liana is your boss? Can you successfully sell her your concept by describing the comic properties, no limit, characters, chase cards, new ideas, etc., to make your card dreams come true?
Okay, so this is terrible. I prepared for the pitcher question, but I did not prepare for this question.
Pretend that I'm an editor and that you want to create a comic and you're pitching me your ideal comic that you'd want to make. How about that?
No, I can do the card one.
Okay.
Okay, so it helps that I was a card guy once upon a time. And one of my weird, like, pandemic nostalgia trips is I got very briefly into Star Wars trading cards. That is a true thing that actually happened. And I would basically emulate, they have these, like, Star Wars masterwork cards that have all the characters and from all the different, like, you know, movies and, you know, animated series and et cetera, Mandalorian. And they have, like, base cards that are, like, just showing different versions of the characters. And then on top of that, they also have ones that are, like, weapons of the Jedi, and then also, like, varying planets and things like that. So it gets into some, like, the lore and the Apocrypha and things like that. But then, like, the cool stuff they have is they have sketch cards. They have sketch cards from, like, an artist that worked on Star Wars movies or shows and stuff that are, like, showing a thing that they wanted to draw. Like, I got this one that was a ship from, or like a fighter pilot ship from Naboo, which is where Padme Amidala, Natalie Portman, is from. And anyway, so I got that, and on the back it's autographed. And then I also got an autographed card of the dude who was the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Clone Wars, who's, like, one of my faves. And then I also got this double autograph card that has Admiral Akbar, you know, It's a Tarp guy. And it also has, you know, an autograph of somebody else. But I would just kind of emulate that, where you can have, like, you could have sketch cards from the comic creators, and this might already exist, but from, like, artists, where you can get, like, a cool Thor sketch on a card from Nick Klein, or, like, a totally rad, like, Daredevil sketch from Chris Samnee or something like that, and it's signed on the back. And then you can also have, like, the actors and, you know, creators, like, signing stuff. And so I guess it could be for any publisher, and yeah, I don't know. And I would make it free, and then I could have all the cards instead of feeling really bad for spending money on Star Wars cards.
I was like, you got me with Star Wars cards. I'm immediately interested.
Yeah.
Immediately.
I just want to kind of, like, have stuff that, like, dives into the stories. I mean, when I was a kid, like, the cards I really loved were the ones that had the power ratings and everything. Mm-hmm. But I guess for this one, it would be more about, like, the people behind it, in a way. Like
the creators, or, like, people who have worked on these licensed properties, but also, like, world building, kind of, like, it involves. Okay.
Yeah, actually, here's I know you know this guy, Cliff Chang. I'm going to show you this. I actually have Comixology cards of, like, Cliff Chang.
I was just about to mention that when I got the 2019 sketch book.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Sent me some really cool trading cards. I think you also sent me X-Men ones.
I think it was a Marvel Universe. Yeah. Jimmy Palmiotti at a bar. Yeah. Marguerite Sauvage just hanging out. I mean, I don't know. I think it's comics worth celebrating. Make a cool one that features all the people who are involved with it, but also all the characters. And just, like, you can have oh my God, what about this? You could have a insert set that is 9 cards, and each one, if you stack them upwards, it makes Stiltman.
You've just made your entire actual set, and yes, I approve. That is getting published.
I love it.
Done and done.
That is a very complex question.
I enjoy it, though. It's very creative, because I have not thought about trading cards in a really, really, really long time. Honestly.
I apparently is not the case for me.
I am excited about this question because it, too, is very obscure. Zach Jenkins asks, how y'all season your burgers?
I love the phrasing. So we talked about this beforehand. If I'm being totally real, I season my burger by ordering it from a restaurant who is much better at making burgers than I am.
by purchasing it from a chef because I agreed with him because I was like, I don't know how to cook. I would have no answer for this.
I actually made my first burger during the pandemic.
Did you do like the thing where
The
you
smash
get,
burger?
yeah, where you smash
No.
it? No.
The first one I made was amazing. It was honestly so good. And then the second one was so bad. It was like legendarily terrible burger.
The one time has ruined it for you completely.
The first time, here's the problem. The first time gave me an undeserved amount of confidence in my ability to make burgers. And then the second one completely ruined all of that confidence, and I've not made another burger since. So
You can do so many things to burgers that it just like is so overwhelming to begin with. So the fact that you've made one successful one is
I'm not okay. I'm a kind of plain person when it comes to burgers. I remember going to a friend's house when I was in high school, and their family made volcano burgers, where you like filled the inside of the burger with like jalapenos and cheese and stuff, and then you bite into it, and it's like having a lava pit injected into your mouth. And I did not like that. I'm like, give me a bacon cheeseburger. That's it.
I didn't come here to burn my mouth. I just wanted a burger.
I'm like, you guys are like molten monstering me. I don't need this. No. But yeah, so
It's really delicious, though. I won't lie.
it, I could appreciate like the idea of it, but it was not for me. But anyways, yes. So the real answer is I'd buy it from somebody else. The answer that if I had to do it myself, I mostly just did like I don't even remember what I had on there. It was just like salt, pepper, and like one other seasoning that I cannot recall off the top of my head. So Zach, I'm a failure. But that's a y'all. He wants to know how you do it. How would you do it?
I'm not trying to copy David with this answer. I literally cannot recall the last time I made a burger. Also, I actually didn't eat red meat for a really long time up until recently. Moving to the South changes you. Apparently, red meat is as accessible as water here. So.
Sometimes more so.
Yeah. So, one question, which this is probably, he's lucky that I'm asking this. Hagai Palevsky asks, what's your favorite thing about Hagai Palevsky?
He's great.
He is great.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
I mean, what's not to like? I don't know. I mean, I wrote an entire article about how he was like one of the most positive forces on the internet about comics. And I don't know. I remember asking him about writing that article, and I think he was really taken aback by it, about it. And then after that, I think it was like his favorite thing.
I think if anything, he was probably just shocked and in awe, or you were maybe joking with him.
Oh, no, absolutely not. But my favorite thing is his commitment to making jokes about Pagliacci and Jesus. I don't even know if the Jesus ones are jokes.
I think that they have a level of sarcasm to them, but they're probably all true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
The Pagliacci ones, though.
the Pagliacci one's definitely real. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, that's he's got a commitment to a bit. I associate him. That's part of his brand, Pagliacci.
That's very true. Just like your brand is Stiltman.
Pagliacci and Stiltman. Well, his one is of one of the Time Magazine's 100 best books of the 20th century, and mine's about a dude who wears stilts. So, advantage, Haggai.
So, obviously, we're talking about branding and stuff like that, and you come from the world of advertising, right?
Yes.
Stepping outside of the comic book industry and putting your marketing hat on, what would the top 3 things in the comic industry that could do better to market itself to a wider audience?
Advertise ever.
What's also holding it back? Advertise ever. Yeah. You're like, controversial opinion.
Yeah, step 1, do it ever. I don't know. I mean, like, I wrote an entire article about comics marketing, and a part of that was just because, it's just, I think at a certain point when you're just speaking to the same audience, you are trying to you're dealing with an audience that's, let's say, X big, and then every time a new issue comes out, it becomes a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. And so at a certain point, you have to kind of, try to speak to different audiences. And I mean, like, I think the most successful venture in the direct market in the past decade was the New 52. And it wasn't because the New 52 was good. It was because they advertised the living hell out of it. It was on TV. It was, like they were doing huge hits and like all kinds of magazines and websites and everything like that. And they, like I said, they had TV ads. They had movie ads in movie theaters and everything like that. So, I mean, so first step, I would actually market it. Second step, I would look to really targeted digital advertising. I could get really deep in this, but it's like a good example is I am a Marvel Unlimited subscriber and I have been for a decade, and I still get ads telling me to sign up for Marvel Unlimited, and like that should not happen. Got to get better at that stuff, Marvel. And third, I would try to use social media better. A lot of what they do is, I think they're getting better. I think that there's, I like a lot of the trailers that happen with comics. Have you ever seen Marvel Quick Draw?
I'm not sure I have.
They haven't done it lately for obvious pandemic reasons, but like it's like these things where they go in people's homes, like Tamara Bonvillain or Mike Del Mundo.
Oh, yes, I have seen. Yeah, I actually really enjoy those.
Yeah, and it's like I think part of the reason why like the stuff that I've been saying about like creators having more power has come up is because there's been a conscious choice to make them more evident as people. And I think that, if you can make people more aware of like Tamara's contributions or Mike Del Mundo's contributions or Matt Wilson's contributions, there makes it more likely that they're invested in that person, and it makes them more invested in reading their comics. And I don't like,
yeah,
I think
brand
that's
loyalty.
Exactly. People are already doing that on social media. Why not lean into that? And I mean, that's part of the reason why I think Jen Bartel is like a genius. Jen is like the absolute best at doing that stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's why people want to get into business with her.
She's who I look up to.
Yeah. She's so smart about this stuff. I mean, people want to attach themselves to her because like her brand is like huge. And I really hate saying brand because Jen has earned everything she's done, and it's not just about like that. But I mean, like
her community and following.
Yeah.
I think that all encompasses it for sure.
Yeah. So I guess
and her by the name.
Exactly. So it's like elevate the people, like give them credits on the books. Like, somebody whose work I love is Sasha Head, a designer in comics. And if you have Sasha Head, put her on the cover credits. Make sure the colorist and letterer is on there. Like, prop everybody up. It's going to help. I mean, what's it going to do? It's going to take up a little bit more space, but is it going to hurt the book? No. So do that.
And I think that's why creator-owned books do so well, especially with like specific teams, because they uplift the creators in general.
That's one of the things I always get really excited about with your stuff is like people get so jazzed about your stuff coming out. Like, you have like art on coffee, and then all of a sudden every single person on the internet is drinking coffee like by the bucket load.
They did. I did not expect that at all. It actually sold out in less than a month. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really exciting. You and I could probably talk about comics marketing for a million years, but the listeners do not have a million years to listen to that yet. So I have two questions to wrap up, and one is really important, and it's definitely not the one from Joe Mulvey. Sorry, Joe.
Okay.
But Joe asked, he's rad, he's the best, favorite city to travel to for a convention?
Okay. I thought about this one. I have a real answer. Like my favorite conventions to go to are Emerald City in New York, and those are like the ones I go to the most. But my favorite convention experience ever was I did this big trip in 2011 where I quit my job and traveled around the world for half a year. And in the middle of it, because I was writing for Multiversity Comics at the time, and there was like a Supernova Expo in Melbourne, Australia that was going on. And two of their biggest guests were Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, and I love Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And so I decided that while I was traveling, that I would just email and be like, hey, can I get a press pass? And they said yes. And so I went there, and oh my God, Australian conventions really take care of people, because not only did they give me a press pass, but like when I got there and I said, oh, I was really interested in the Simon Pegg and Nick Frost thing, they reserved a seat in the very front row for me at their panel. and escorted me to the front of it because I was late to it. And they're like, we want to make sure you get to your seat so you can do the reporting. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm going to do reporting on this. Yeah. Okay. And I was really just like, I would like to go to this because I'm already here. And they were like so nice and like so like amazing at managing everything. Australia totally rules at stuff. And yeah, Melbourne is just an amazing city. So I just want to go back to Melbourne. So I'm going to choose Melbourne.
You're not going to choose the upgraded suite.
No. I mean, I got escorted to a seat at a panel. It was amazing.
You honestly sound like podcasting royalty at this point.
That was in 2011. I didn't even have a podcast then.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, Multiversity. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I have a lot of questions about that later on, for sure. Sounds really fun, especially the traveling around the country part. Speaking of traveling around the country, did you go with your partner?
No, I didn't even know her at that point.
Oh, that's wild.
She would have been very mad at me if I had left the country to travel away from her for 6 months.
See you later. I'm going to do comic stuff. Bye.
Shortly after we got together, I went to New York Comic Con and I did not invite her. And it wasn't because I didn't want her to go. It was just like, I didn't know if we were at like travel to a comic convention part of our relationship.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, she wasn't mad, but you know, she would have preferred to have been invited. If I did 6 months away from her, she definitely would want to be invited.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Speaking of her,
yes.
She is wonderful. And I am so glad that she submitted a question. So exciting. She asks, if your cats were comic characters, which ones would they be and why?
Oh my God.
This is pertinent and crucial to your 300.5 podcast.
This is really tough because like, there's like, I could give like a aspirational answer, or I could give the answer that involves them being around me the most, but it's also kind of disgusting. Are you familiar with the character Maggot from X-Men?
I am not, and now I'm going to look this up immediately after.
Maggot is my friend Brandon's favorite character, and Maggot has these two things that are around. They're like slugs. I guess they're like maggots that hang around him all the time. They're called Eenie and Meanie, and they just like hang out on his shoulders and just like hang out with him all the time. And the very selfish version of me likes that, like, they could be Eenie and Meanie and I could be Maggot, because then they would just be always running around on my shoulders and everything. The really weird part about that is in the comics, Eenie and Meanie are his digestive system. And so when they eat, he eats. And so I would be eating cat food, I think, technically in that case. So I don't know if I like
baby birding it from your cat.
Exactly. Ooh, I have a better answer. This is like a total cheat. And it's going to make me a villain, literally. I could be Blaster, but I'm not going to. In Transformers, there's a character named Soundwave who is totally awesome, and he shoots cassettes out of his chest, and then they like form into like cats or into like bats and stuff like that. And they're totally badass. So in this situation, I am Soundwave, and they are the cassettes that get shot out of my chest. You
realize that you have to get that as a commission, right?
That is actually a pretty good idea for a commission.
Yeah.
I don't know why I made myself a villain. I just like Soundwave. He's cool.
I think Soundwave's like the Transformers staple if you're like an edgy kid in any way. So.
Okay, so this is a story Amber is all too familiar with, but when I was a kid, other parents always would say things like, to my parents, they would say, I wish my child dressed like your son does. Because I dressed like an accountant when I was a kid. I like always wore slacks, and I'd always wear like nice shirts. And like, this was in an era where children would wear like Big Johnson shirts and stuff like that. And I'd be coming in and I'm like, you heathens, what are you doing?
They're going to be doing their accounting.
Exactly.
Like taxes.
And so I pretty much look exactly the same as I did then. And I'm currently wearing slacks, so my fashion has not changed. I was
gonna say, you always look professional, even like during con weekends. You know what I mean? If you wore a tie, it would not surprise me at any moment.
Oh boy. I didn't wear jeans intentionally until I was 19.
You never experienced wearing jeans?
I didn't
until you were like almost an adult?
Okay, so I know I wore jeans. It was forced upon me because in the Cub Scouts, they made you wear jeans so I had to wear jeans then. But I considered them very restrictive, and I didn't like that about them. I was like, slacks just felt nice. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Like adult, like professional pajamas.
yeah. So, but I'm the opposite of an edgy kid, though. So I'm like the edgy, curious accountant who really loves Soundwave.
Who really loves Soundwave? If having the 300th episode happen, congratulations, by the way, was a badge that you got from the Boy Scouts, what would it be called and what would the art be on it?
Oh boy. Well, I'm tempted to make it Soundwave with cats shooting out of his chest now. But
It's already done.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be, and you know what? The name actually works too. It'd be the Soundwave badge. Because, you know what? Podcasting, sound. There we go. Oh my God. And who would draw it? I would get my buddy Nick Roach, who is a longtime artist of Transformers and a tremendously great guy. And I would get him to do it because he's literally the only Transformers artist I know. Also because he's great.
You hear that? You're signed up for this already. So.
Exactly. I got to get him to do the commission. This is somehow I went from being a guest on my own podcast to I'm now going to commission someone to draw art. So this is great.
Yeah. It's my long-term ploy as an artist to just make you keep spending money on art. This was the entire purpose of the podcast.
Actually, next time we're at a convention, this seems really weird to say. Next time we're at a convention, I'm getting you in my theme sketchbook. We still got to do that.
I can't wait.
I
know we've been planning on that, yeah.
Is Mystique with makeup, right?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I literally was thinking about that when we were talking about, when you mentioned it earlier, I was like, I can't wait to draw that. I should just draw it anyway.
You should. So. You should. I'm glad that Amber asked a question.
I am too. And the fact that she essentially was like, I just want to make sure it's good enough, but here's one just in case. And like, I know that if I was to, I didn't even ask a question yet because I was like, what do you ask somebody who's done 300 episodes? But so I guess mine was the Boy Scout question.
There you go.
Which falls, somewhat on brand. So
I like it. Wait, are you a Boy Scout?
Fun fact, I was a Boy Scout for 3 months because I refused to become a Girl Scout and my brother's troop let me in it.
That is badass. You want to know a fun fact?
Yeah. You
lasted longer as a Boy Scout than I did.
Are you serious?
I lasted like a week and I was like, this sucks. I'm tired of jeans. And I quit.
Did you get any badges at all?
I got Cub Scout badges. I just didn't get Boy Scout badges. I graduated to Boy Scout and I was like, this is so much work. They're like, you want me to do what with wood? No. Camping? No, I don't like camping. I'm terrible.
Being outside. You
like
the fine life.
I got Amber socks one year for Christmas that said, I love not camping.
I need to see those.
They're pretty great.
People in the South love camping and hiking and stuff like that. I can definitely hike. Camping, I'm like, I want to love it. It looks luxurious. It looks like you're freeing your soul and everything. But I'm like, bugs and sleeping on the ground. And, bears terrify me. All the normal things that will like eat you or kill you or whatever. It's just like, why risk it when I could sleep in my bed?
I also like
a normal.
I like nice things. I like functional bathrooms. It's terrible. I'm an Alaskan.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, do you want to go camping? I'm like, no, I do not. Nope. I don't.
You live in I feel like Alaska's camping, like it's the mecca of camping, especially during like the nicer weather and stuff like that.
Oh, it totally is. I've been camping many times and I've enjoyed it. It's just like at a certain point, I'm like, I need a good bed and I don't need to be laying on rocks. And if I want to drink around a fire, I can just do that in my backyard.
That's true.
Yeah, with Penny Hardaway Chef.
Luxury of like a good. Yeah, that's true. You can bring in the nice food. You have it all set up.
If I come down to what is it, MXM? What they call it, the Memphis Comic Expo?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I ever come down to that, you, me, and Penny Hardaway's Chef.
Oh.
We're tearing the town up.
Happening. I'm gonna somehow figure out how to contact him.
I know you don't remember me, Penny Hardaway Chef. This person has a name. I apologize to Penny Hardaway Chef.
Well, he's talking about this like weeks ago. I accidentally ran into two gentlemen having a dinner and struck up a conversation because I was waiting to walk to a car. And it just so happened that he was Penny Hardaway's chef and he was super nice. And we talked about food for a long time. And I immediately texted David afterwards to tell him about it.
Because my brand on basketball is strong.
Yes, it very much is.
And listeners are probably like, who the hell is Penny Hardaway? Basketball player from the 1990s who is now the coach of Memphis Tigers.
I almost messaged Rico about it, but I was like, is this worthy of a story?
Wait, I got worthy of this story. I'll take that. I like it.
Congratulations, dude. This is amazing.
Thank you.
And you didn't interview me the entire time. So proud.
I did a little bit, but I fought back towards, for the last, like...
You reeled it in.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate it, Liana.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm honored again to now be the permanent host because I am taking over the podcast and it's mine now. So thank you.
Oh, well, I'm excited.
I'll have taking over your podcasting empire. I'm going to get the VIP treatment at the cons.
This is going to give me a lot more free time. This is really great. My cats are going to remember who I am because they put me on milk cartons.